Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Ad Age Remotely. I'm Jeanine Poggi, Senior Editor here at Ad Age, and today I'm live with Michael Kassan, Founder, Chairman, and CEO of MediaLink. Hi, Michael.
Hey, Jeanine, how are you?
Good. How are you?
You know, hanging in on what seems to be Groundhog Day for most of it.
Where are you working from?
I'm in Los Angeles. We've been hunkered down here now since, I guess, March the 10th. And holding up.
How's working remotely been for you?
You know, like everybody, we've adjusted and we've kind of done what the human condition, I think, does more rapidly than we give it credit for, and that's habituate. We've gotten into our habits and we've created a routine and a certain rhythm. I said to somebody kind of tongue in cheek the other day, I've got a rhythm. I'd like to change the tune. I mean, it'd be a happier song to be singing. But in the main, we've adjusted, and you know, our team, most importantly at MediaLink, are healthy and all accounted for, thank God, as well as most of our partners in the marketplace. And I think people have accepted this as the current normal. You know, hopefully we'll chat a bit about current versus future, but you know, there's a current normal, and this seems to be it.
Have you picked up any new hobbies while at home?
I've threatened to start cooking, which is something I've never done. I'm honest to say I mused about it this weekend, and I'm thinking if I believe the timing, I've got a couple of weeks left at home, so I'm gonna probably dive in this week and see what I can do. You know. Behind the stove.
Maybe you'll fit mine. Maybe you'll find a whole new thing. You'll be doing cooking videos for us then.
Oh my God! Anything possible. We need our creativity genes to be at the highest and most productive right now.
I'm here at Michael Kassan of MediaLink. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them on any of our social channels, and we can pull them in during the broadcast. So, Michael, obviously a lot has changed, you know, in the ad world. How have you at MediaLink been advising clients and navigating through this time?
So, Jeanine, I alluded to it a moment ago. We are speaking with our clients on a very regular basis, and our partners, and as well the larger industry, about kind of a two-prong approach. How do we address the current situation and the current circumstances that we find ourselves in? You know, I'm reminded of my grandmother or my mother, one of them, who always would say to me, and I'm sure you heard it as well, when we plan, God laughs. Whatever plans we had don't seem to matter right now in the business context or the personal context. So what we're talking with our partners about is, what do you need to do now? What is the current normal? And of course, everybody wants to focus on what the new normal is going to be. I'm not sure anybody knows that yet. I heard Gretzky last night talking about skating to where the puck is again. And what we've said to that at MediaLink is, nobody really knows where the puck is for sure going to be. But what we do all have a responsibility and an obligation to do as responsible business people is to identify the road to where that puck is going to be. So it's what we've started to call the transitional normal. And that is really the thing we're trying to focus on. Yes, what do you do right now? But more importantly, what are you going to do in the next few months as we get to whatever will become our quote unquote new normal?
So one of the things, of course, that, you know, we've been talking about, the industry has been talking about, is Cannes. And of course, you know, Cannes will be canceled for 2020. But with that decision being made, what does that mean for the future of the event?
Well, we believe the importance of Cannes, which at its core has always been about the celebration of creativity, will not become less important. We believe, candidly, it'll become more important. The physical manifestation of that, unfortunately, has to take a back seat to the current reality of COVID-19. And as you stated, we won't have a live Cannes this year, but we certainly will in 2021. We've already reserved our spot on the beach. We've already reserved our event space. We're going full bore against the backdrop of a 21 return. In the interim, and our sister company, the Cannes Lions, announced their live Lions this morning. We at MediaLink are imagining the creation virtually of our MediaLink Beach. You know that last year we made that move from the Carlton Hotel to the beach, and we built out that facility. We were fully intending to do that again. In fact, it was going to be expanded this year. And now we're going to have to imagine that virtually, which we're in the midst of. Our event team is working on that currently with many of our partners to try and capture what we believe the magic of Cannes is, what we believe the magic of that happenstance meeting, that opportunity to interact on the Croisette, or in our case at the MediaLink Beach. And as much as we will be able to virtually recognize creativity, we want to virtually bring the MediaLink Beach concept to life, and we're going to do it.
Any idea of what that might look like?
Well, I'll give you a funny anecdote, Jeanine. Years ago, we were doing work with our Dunkin' Donuts client, and they were unable to go to Cannes at the last minute. They're based in Canton, Massachusetts. So what we did back 3 or 4 years ago was we said, we're going to bring Cannes to Canton. And we did that. We actually brought some interesting companies and interesting technologies and other things that the Dunkin' team would have been, seeing and interacting with in Cannes. We brought it to them. So we've got a template for it. Now that again required travel and going to Canton, Massachusetts, but I am certain with the ability for all of us to adapt and do what we're doing here right now on a WebEx or a Zoom or a Google Hangout or a team, we're all getting pretty good at this. And as a result of that, I think we can imagine things in a different way. So we're keen to get moving on it, and we're keen to appreciate what technology can mean to that interaction. And I would just add, look, it's no surprise, Jeanine, we've known one another for quite some time. I think it's fair to say MediaLink was founded against the backdrop of connectivity as one of our founding principles. So reimagining that connectivity is our challenge, but I think it's a challenge we are up to. And you've heard me say, and I know lots of people are sharing this view, we are not proponents of social distancing. We are proponents of physical distancing in the interim period, but we are massively supportive of social connectivity and, the manifestation or realization of that virtually.
Right. We've heard from several industry leaders over the last few weeks who've said now could be the right time to imagine Cannes for the future. Is there anything being discussed beyond the virtual opportunity, for the current environment? Beyond that, is there a way to rethink how, Cannes plays out for 2021?
A bit early to say that. We're always, we like to look at it always as a work in progress, and always interested, just as we did last year when we launched CLX, which was around connect, learn, and experience. That was another way to bring the Cannes messaging to life with our partners. And so we will continue to look at ways to do that and reimagine and reinvent as we go. Again, with the practical reality of being the cockeyed optimist, I'm hopeful that by June of 21, we'll be back to a sense where people can feel comfortable to travel and can feel comfortable with the proper protection and thinking to be in larger groups. We still think there's a lot to be said for that interaction and that kind of, opportunistic, as I say, physical interaction.
Right. I'd like to give a shout out to a few viewers here. We have Marianne from Atlanta, Lionel from San Diego, Majid from London, Nicholas from Cyprus, Dennis from California, and Natalie from Florida. Thank you for joining us. I'm here with Michael Kassan of MediaLink. And, pivoting a little bit, with everyone and sort of thinking very real time and in the moment, marketers, it's very hard to plan for too far in the future right now. What are you thinking as it relates to what this might mean for the TV upfronts? Do you expect, deal making to take place in the traditional time frame of late spring and early summer?
Well, as a deal junkie, I would hope deal making is going to continue. That would be sad if it weren't, and obviously it will. It's going to take a different cast this year. Obviously, the industry leadership and those of positions of importance to that conversation, whether it's the trade associations with the IAB, the 4As, and the ANA, and as well the agency leadership, the brand leadership, and the publishers, the sellers, they're all examining this right now and looking at it. Obviously, there's not going to be one size fits all. That wouldn't make sense in our industry. It never has. Certain marketers are going to want to go to market in a certain way. Many may want to just continue to do business as it was, but will it be housed with an upfront in a traditional sense? No. Obviously, those 4 days in May are not happening. There was conversation about potentially something at the end of June. That has not been resolved yet, but what I would tell you is the dialogue is real, and the acknowledgement by all the constituents around that table that potentially, at least for 2020, we have to examine it through a different method. Do I think the long-term implications might see the change in the upfront going forward in a 2021 scenario? Yeah, I do think that that's a possibility. One only need hear what some of the leaders of the entertainment media companies are talking about in terms of changes to the system, whether you listen to what the executive chairman of the Walt Disney Company, want to make sure I have the title right, Bob Iger said recently was, gee, maybe this is the time when we don't have upfronts again, or maybe this is the time when we don't have the pilot production method that we've used heretofore. So I think all of those things are going to get a different lens. Under the necessity is the mother of invention. It's also the opportunity to examine some things that you might have wanted to examine in any event. And I do think we will see some of that. The result, there's a lot of constituents with a lot of opinion. Do I think that the move from a broadcast year to a calendar year, which again is in the weeds for many of your listeners, but yeah, I think that that's something that could take hold for potentially this year, but it's too early to tell. But I will say those conversations, I believe, are ongoing between the relevant parties. And like any negotiation, the relevant parties are those people who are buying and those people who are selling, mediated by the appropriate, agency partnerships across the landscape.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if more TV buys are done closer to real time, more done in scatter this year, and if it operates a little bit more like deal making is done in digital, operating a little bit closer to real time, and if that's something that could continue post the pandemic, if we just see more real time buying.
You know what? We are all in a petri dish right now, and that includes our industry. Our industry is going to do some things in this environment and in this particular context that they may find work differently than they thought. And I think everybody that I've spoken with, and I've been fortunate to speak to most of the decision makers at some point over the last 5 or 6 weeks, they're all open, and they're all open to doing what's right. The thing that I've been the most appreciative of is across the board how the publishers, the large scale media companies, and as well the brands have worked, and the agencies collaboratively in this point of time, because not everybody's impacted equally. Not every industry is as devastated as others, but uniquely to this particular crisis, to this particular moment, it seems to be more even, i.e. the pain, certainly more acute in some places, but I think everybody's feeling it. And what we've seen is a real flexibility. You go down the list of every one of the major broadcast networks, and we all know the call letters, but ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, Univision, Discovery, Turner, just down the line, they're all being more flexible. They have to. They're listening to the needs and the wants of their clients, and also listening to the needs and the wants of the clients to be back. All one need do is look at The Last Dance last night on ESPN. The numbers were extraordinary. I think I saw an overnight of 6.1 million viewers. That tells you there's obviously a pent-up demand for sports and something new. So I think that bodes well for how broadcast and cable dollars will start to flow once there's content we can get behind and feel excited about.
Right. We have a question from Christopher on LinkedIn. What is your biggest pivot right now, budget-wise?
Do you mean industry-wide or specific to an industry?
Let's look at it from an industry perspective.
I mean, the obvious suspects, the travel-related, it's a disaster for those folks across the board. The sectors that we all know that have been damaged the most. Look, what I think is interesting is budget moves. We're seeing, the work that AT&T is doing. We're seeing the work that the broadcast networks did with the telethon, with the Global Citizen on Saturday night. Hats off in terms of bringing Kimmel and Colbert and Fallon together. Yes, it's been done before, but rarely. To see that collaboration indicates everybody's kind of playing, checking weapons at the door and creating strange bedfellows here. So I think budget moves, we've seen great work done, as I say, by the networks. We've seen great work done by those who are trying to realize in this moment. Our friends at Vice, for a great example, said, look, right now news is the new sports. What iHeart is doing with celebrating graduation and getting commencement speeches and the like, people are chipping in. They're being creative. They're trying to get to those areas like the students who are being cheated out of, once in a lifetime opportunities, whether it's high school and going to your prom or college and having your graduation across the board. I think you look at what the industry is doing, every one of the leading digital players from Facebook to Google to Snap, they're just all stepping up. And yes, of course, they're doing that in the spirit of doing well and doing good, but they still have to generate advertising revenue. And by being creative with their partners, they're able to do that as well, in this interim.
Right. I'm Jeanine Poggi here at Ad Age, and I'm here with Michael Kassan, CEO of MediaLink. We have a question from Barry on LinkedIn. Hi, Michael. Are you actively discouraging clients to put their sales-focused campaigns out there?
Well, it's interesting, Barry and others. There's a tone-deaf quotient right now that everybody is focused on, and what's the right message. And, at the end of the day, it is not bad. I don't think it is bad to ask for the order. Those of you who know me would know that that's probably true. But, that applies writ large to companies putting their sales strategy out there. No, I think if it's done in a tasteful way, and if it's done in a way that is acknowledging the moment, you can't pretend we're not in this moment. I think that brands need to be doing that. They have an obligation to their consumers and to their teams and to the business community at large to be doing business. So I think if you manage it right and you do it in a sensitive way, I think it's really okay.
We have another question from David on LinkedIn. What are you thinking about media costs throughout the remainder of the year?
Well, we live in a supply and demand world, and if the demand is down, the cost is going to be impacted. It's hard to tell right now. Obviously, one of the questions I've gotten from somebody outside of our industry is, gee, why am I seeing some of these companies advertising that would never have been on broadcast or cable, certainly national cable or broadcast television right now? And, the obvious answer is the costs are down. And as a result of that, you can get some entrance into the marketplace that wouldn't previously have been able to afford, national broadcast or cable rates. So obviously that says something about it. Too early to tell, but certainly don't think we'll see significant increases in 2020.
Okay. What's the state of new business pitches? Has new business pitching slowed?
It's changed. A couple that we were in the midst of are continuing. They're continuing with different sets of rules and different engagement capability. again, utilizing video. A few others that we were ready to kick off have been put on hold. But I think we'll see that continue. And when I say that continue, that business will come back into more center in the next few weeks, maybe not months, but in the next month or so. We are seeing, so just to answer it definitively, we're seeing a continuation, but it's being realized in a different way, Jeanine.
How are these, the ones that are continuing, being handled remotely? Like, what does that look like, doing some of these remotely?
I mean, you're doing Zooms, and if it was a group question session, you're having group questions. And if it's a one-on-one agency presentation, what we've all found, and I think you'd agree, Jeanine, you and I have had a lot of face-to-face meetings over the years, but I feel like this, is bringing us together. And, would this be my optimal way to pitch? No, I'm an in-person kind of a guy, but it works. So I think you're imagining it just as you are seeing it play out live here.
Yeah, we talked a little bit this at the top of this when we were talking about Cannes, and like you just said, you're an in-person guy. What do you think the future of networking even looks like? I mean, that's your cup of tea. So how do you think we might network in the future?
I told my wife recently I wasn't prepared yet to go out of style, so hopefully that doesn't occur. But look, I think it's going to be different. You interviewed Martin Sorrell the other day, and somebody, I think your question was, will a deal ever be closed with a handshake again? Maybe it's going to be a high five that you don't actually touch. Maybe the old-fashioned Hollywood air kiss is coming back into style, just kind of blowing a kiss in the air. Yeah, I think it's going to be different for a while. And we are all going to have to find our level of comfort. I know when my wife and I are out on our walks in the afternoon now, which we do every day, I'm happy to say, not something we did pre-COVID, not every day for sure. I'm very cognizant of those around who are wearing a mask. I'm happy to say that I'm adhering to the guidelines and the rules and regulations, and we do wear masks every time we leave the house now. And I would tell you, in my neighborhood, on a walk at least, probably only 50% of the people have the mask, even when they're out walking. And again, I understood the guidelines to say you should, even when you just go out for the walk, because you may get closer to the people than you think. So, I think people are adhering. And I think if you factor that into what in-person meetings look like, that's going to become a thing of the day. And in my case, I'm negotiating with Brunello Cucinelli to see if he can make some good masks. I'm trying to keep it real.
Well, aside from the networking implications and the face-to-face meetings and things like that, what are some other, long-term impacts the pandemic might have on the ad industry?
I think travel. I think any company who looks at their travel budget post the pandemic and it stays remotely the same should be ashamed of themselves. And I mean that in a very strong fashion, because we're proving that travel can be less. You don't need to travel to every meeting to be effective. And we're certainly going to look at that at MediaLink. And I'm somebody who spends a good part of my time in the air. That's going to change. I genuinely think it is. And I also think your commercial real estate footprint is going to change. I think more and more telecommuting and more of the opportunity to be working from home in some fashion will change what companies' physical footprints are. I let you in on a little secret, but about a year and a half ago, when there was a really bad snowstorm expected, and MediaLink got a lot of notes from our team using the acronym WFH, which we all know now, but I'm honest to say, about a year and a half, I had no idea what it meant. I asked, sheepishly asked one of the team, by the way, I know what WTF means, but what's WFH? I felt like I was out of the loop, but I certainly know WFH now, and I use that more than WTF. So
the new acronyms for the pandemic.
Yeah.
We have another question about Cannes from Lisa on LinkedIn. What about companies that are asking for refunds and refusing credit for investments in Cannes 2021?
Well, what I would say to that is I can't answer that specifically on behalf of the Cannes Lions, although we are sister companies. I know that they are dealing with this on a case-by-case basis, and so far I understand, most people are getting taken care of very legitimately relative to everything from the hotels and travel to the extent we can impact, or we, at least the Cannes Lions, can impact the hotels. And as well on a case-by-case basis with the partners. But obviously, I mean, I would say this, like any business, there's a hope that people can, roll with the punches a bit, and maybe some of those deposits can apply towards 2021. But again, I would leave that specific answer to my sister company at the Cannes Lions.
We have a question from Scott on LinkedIn. Seeing that you have CNN on in the background, is that CNN on in there? How are you?
Equal opportunity employer. If you notice, there are 3 TV screens, and I have 3 different news feeds that I watch on a regular basis.
So how are you guiding your media buying clients on the value of news and how to support legitimate news organizations in times like these?
Well, in our good piece that we've now written for 2 weeks, focusing on finding good things that are happening in our industry during these kind of bleak times, I wrote a piece about the importance of supporting news and responsible journalism. I am a news junkie. I always have been. These 3 screens are always tuned to news on, well, not always, but on a general basis when I work in this room in regular times. So I think it's critical for us to focus on truth and responsible journalism, and the need for that to be supported by marketers. So the idea of adjacency to news and news about COVID and other things, I think if I was speaking on behalf of the industry, which I'm not, I'm giving you, you're the reporter, but I'll give you one professional opinion. I think we should be supportive, and I think the adjacency rules should be relaxed relative to, gee, can I have my product story next to a news story about COVID? That is the news. That is what's on people's minds today. So I think that's really important.
And we'll take one more question before wrapping up. We have a question from Gabe on LinkedIn. Hi, Michael. Media Village is forecasting a dramatic impact on 2020 and 2021 budgets. Sir Martin was bullish on Q4 coming back. Who do you think is right and why?
I think we will see a V-shaped curve. I'm hopeful of that. And I think the fourth quarter, traditionally an important quarter, of course, I think it will be a very, very solid fourth quarter. And I think, I think Sir Martin, but many, many other that are predicting a V-shaped curve are right. And that's my hopeful view, and as well my realistic view.
So you mentioned you're watching a lot of news in that room. What else have you been, watching, reading during this time?
I'm honest to say I'm not reading as much in terms of books. I'm certainly reading a lot of news, newspaper and magazine. But we've been binging like crazy. We are just finished. I will do a shameless plug. My son produced a show on Amazon called Tales from the Loop, and I've watched that, and it's amazing for those of you who love sci-fi. But we've been doing all the right things with watching Quibi and in my breaks, and doing lots of streaming. This weekend we caught up on Fauda, which we love, and the new season had dropped the other day. So that's my current binge du jour.
Thank you, Michael, for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And please tune in to the next edition of Remotely. Thank you, Michael, and be well.
Jeanine, you take care, and thank you all for listening, and everybody stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.